Hi everyone, Jean here. Thank you for joining me. In today's video, we're going to be making a floral card using the new Waffle Flower Grip Mat. Let's start out by making the background. I'm using my largest grip mat and I'm putting on a piece of Hammermill 100-pound cardstock. I'm just going to be making a simple ink blended background using the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated ink in Lemonade and Cadet. I prefer to start out my ink blending using my lightest color whenever it makes sense. So I've sped this up a little bit for the ink blending, and I'll do that throughout the video just so you don't have to watch me do it in real time. But I'm starting out with just a little bit of the Lemonade on the corners, and then I'm going to come in with the Cadet, and I'm going to try to get a little bit of a mix of the blue and the green, or the blue and the yellow, to make green. The Cadet is a really bright, bold color. So you're going to see that it's going to look pretty dark along the edges. I try to start off the cardstock and come in. But you can see here, as soon as I move my hand, where I'm getting the blend of the yellow and the blue and just a little bit of green with the combination of those two colors. Now I'm not worrying about getting any ink on my grip mat because they clean off really easily with just a baby wipe or a wet cloth. They may stain, just like your photopolymer stamps may stain, but that will not impact how they work. My ink blending is complete, so I am removing my cardstock from the grip mat, and you can see there's no damage to the cardstock at all. And then I'm going to just quickly clean this off with a baby wipe. For the floral images on this card, I'm going to be using the Waffle Flower Elegant Flowers stamp, die, and stencil set. So here I'm looking over the stamp set and trying to decide which flowers I think I want to have as my focal. And I'm going to do the large one and the smallest one, along with a few leaves. I have my mini Misty already set up with the small Waffle Flower Grip Mat, and so I just need to add some paper here and arrange my stamps and then pick them up with the lid of my Misty. I'm going to ink up these outline images with my Gina K Amalgam Obsidian ink pad. I love this ink for pretty much everything. It's my go-to for Copics, and in this case we'll be ink blending, but it gives me a really dark, crisp black line, and I just love that about it. So I'll be inking these images up 3 times just to make sure I get that black impression. And these are new stamps, so I did not condition them first, which I probably should have done. But so it will take about three tries to get this, get the image the way I need it. I'm pretty happy with this, so I'm going to remove it from my grip mat. And again, you can see there's no damage. And I'm just going to leave my grip mat in my mini Misty since I really do like using it there. And I'm back to putting my images now on my larger grip mat so that I can do the stenciling. I'll be using the coordinating stencils that go with this stamp set in order to color these flowers and the leaves. You can see here I'm lining up my stencil with the largest flower, and then I just go around the edge to make sure that the rest of the stencil has stuck to the grip mat, and then I can begin my ink blending. I'm starting out with a light pink color called Guava from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm just trying to go with a light hand, which honestly is kind of hard for me because I tend to like the bolder colors, and I always think I need to put more ink on the first time than I really do. Now here I'm removing the stencil, and I want to point out that since this stencil has a lot of little details in it, you want to be a little bit careful when you're pulling it off the grippy mat just to make sure that you don't rip it. I didn't have any issues with these, and they are pretty sturdy, but it is something you want to be aware of. So these stencils, to do the flower, there's 4 layers. And when I started working on the second layer, I decided to use the guava again and just go over it a little bit heavier. So at this point, I'm really glad that the first time I did this, I did a really light hand so that I could get some contrast in the second layer. I'm gonna go ahead and speed up my ink blending and play a little music, and I'll be back with you in a minute. Now that my ink blending is done, I can remove my cardstock from my grip mat, and I can go ahead and die cut these. I'm going to die cut these offline, and I'm also going to be creating 2 more leaves. I just decided at the end that I'd like an odd number of leaves, and I want to have some options on their direction. Here I'm removing my grip mat from my work surface, and I'm putting it back on, I'm putting the carrier sheets back on top of it. I like to keep the carrier sheets on it to protect it when I'm not using it. I'm cutting my ink blended background panel down to 3.5 by 4 3/4 so that I can get a nice white kind of frame around the outside edge of my card. Before I go any further, I kind of want to check the layout. So I want to put all my pieces just roughly on the card front and kind of see where the placement would be. I'll start out with my biggest flower. I add in my leaves. Sometimes I move things around. You'll see I'm kind of trying to decide what configuration I want. Once I have my arrangement the way that I want it, I'll use press and seal to keep the arrangement kind of in the same place. And I do that by pressing down just lightly on the individual die cuts so that they stick to the press and seal. And with that done, I'm going to go ahead and add foam adhesive to the back side of my background panel, and then I will add that to my card front. With my card base and background ready, I am ready to start adding glue to the back side of my die cuts. And I do this, I've kind of planned that what I'm going to do is have the smallest flower be popped up with foam tape to give the card a little bit more dimension. So right now what I'm doing is adding glue to the die cuts that are going to lay flat against the background panel. So just adding some glue here and also trying to get a little bit of glue underneath some of the die cuts there that are on top. So now that I have the glue on there, I can go ahead and position my arrangement on my card front kind of the way that I want it to be. And you can see here I just kind of move it around until it gets to be where I want it. And then I just press it down and make sure I press it all the background pieces. I don't have to really press hard on that front small flower because I didn't put any glue on that. I want to make sure that that can be popped up with that foam tape. So you see here all the other pieces stayed in place perfectly. And now what I'm going to do is add a little piece of foam adhesive to the back of this smaller flower and attach it to the card front. Now that my flowers are in place, it's time to move on to the sentiment. And I've decided here to use one of the Waffle Flower sub-sentiment die cut strips. These are already printed for you and they make card making super quick and simple. And I love using them on my cards. So here I'm just going around the edges. These are a white core cardstock. So I'm just going around the edges with my black Copic marker to make it look like it's a solid core cardstock. And it's just a little finishing touch that I like to add to my sentiment strips. I'll go ahead and add a little bit of foam adhesive to the back side of the sentiment strip and then attach it to my card. To make sure that I get my sentiment strip straight, I like to use a little liquid adhesive on the back of the foam. Even though the foam is sticky, adding that little bit of liquid glue gives me a little bit of wiggle room in terms of it, making sure that I get the strips straight on the card. And I'm going to be using my Simon Says Stamp T ruler to help me make sure that I get this sentiment strip in the right spot and perfectly positioned so that it's not crooked. I apologize that I get my head in the way here a little bit. I'm trying to, I have to see over the top of it in order to get it lined up correctly. And now I'm just wanting to tuck it behind that flower a little bit. And again, I wiggled it a little bit, so I want to make sure that it's straight and it looks pretty good. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. And the last step for this card is to add a little bit of shine, a little bit of bling. And for this, I'm using the Trinity Stamps Rock Candy. I think they're called confetti. They're not, they don't have holes in them, so they're not sequins. But I love them. I think they add just the perfect amount of shine and they finish off a card really well. And there you have it. that is, if I can get it in front of the camera, that is the card for today. I hope you really like this video, and don't forget to check out the Waffle Flower Grip Mats. Have a great day, everyone.